Before we dive into today's incredible story, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you joining us from the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, or somewhere else entirely? I love hearing from you. It's February 1915, and the muddy killing fields of the Western Front have become a nightmare of barbed wire, machine gun nests, and death. British soldiers are being slaughtered trying to clear enemy trenches with weapons that are as likely to kill them as the enemy. Into this chaos steps a 59-year-old golf club manufacturer from Birmingham with a strange-looking metal ball covered in grooves. Military brass take one look and dismiss it immediately. But William Mills knows something they don't. He spent months studying every grenade failure, every soldier's death, every design flaw. And he's about to prove them all wrong. The Mills bomb matters because it solved one of World War I's deadliest problems: how to clear enemy trenches without dying in the process. Before William Mills revolutionized hand grenade design, British soldiers faced a horrifying reality. Their standard issue grenade number 1, a cast-iron canister mounted on an 18-inch wooden handle, was killing nearly as many of them as it killed Germans. The statistics were brutal. British records estimate that approximately 2 to 2.5% of all casualties during World War I were caused by hand grenades, and a significant portion of those were friendly fire incidents from faulty designs. Soldiers attempting to throw grenades from trenches frequently had the long wooden handles catch on the trench walls, causing the grenade to detonate at their feet. Others used friction-ignited grenades that could accidentally spark against equipment or clothing, exploding before they left the thrower's hand. The strategic stakes couldn't be higher. Trench warfare had created a nightmarish stalemate where neither side could advance without suffering catastrophic casualties. Grenades represented one of the few weapons that could reach enemies hidden behind cover, but only if soldiers could actually use them without committing suicide in the process. Mills' innovation would ultimately lead to the production of approximately 75 million grenades during World War I, fundamentally altering infantry tactics and saving countless lives. His design would remain the British Army's standard hand grenade for over 55 years, serving in World War II, Korea, and countless other conflicts. The Mills bomb didn't just change one battle, it changed warfare itself. William Mills was born on April 26, 1856, in Ware Street, Southwick, Sunderland, a gritty shipbuilding town in northeast England where innovation was hammered out in foundries and forges. The son of David Mills, a shipbuilder, young William grew up surrounded by the sounds of industry, the smell of hot metal, and the constant drive to build things that worked. His early years gave no hint of the military genius that would emerge decades later. At 14, Mills began a 7-year apprenticeship with George Clark, the famous marine engineers of Sunderland, learning the intricate art of metalwork and mechanical design. After completing his apprenticeship in 1884, he earned his first-class certificate as a marine engineer and spent 7 years at sea, navigating the world's oceans and learning firsthand about the machinery that kept ships afloat. It was during these years at sea that Mills witnessed a tragedy that would shape his innovative mindset. He saw sailors die because of unsafe lifeboat launching mechanisms, men plunging into freezing water as faulty engaging and disengaging gear failed at critical moments. The experience haunted him. In response, Mills invented a simple, safe, and efficient lifeboat launching system that he exhibited at the Liverpool Shipowners' Exhibition in 1886. The Board of Trade approved his design, and it was adopted worldwide in both naval and merchant vessels. Mills had saved his first lives, but he wasn't done yet. In 1885, Mills established himself as a general engineer in Sunderland and did something remarkable. He built the first aluminium foundry in the United Kingdom at the Atlas Works, Bonnersfield, Monkwearmouth. This wasn't just another metalworking shop. Aluminium was still viewed with suspicion in the late 19th century. Lightweight but unproven, expensive but promising. Mills conducted exhaustive laboratory tests and workshop trials, producing aluminium castings that passed every reliability standard. He became a pioneer in British metallurgy. But Mills had another passion: golf. A keen player who joined the Wearside Golf Club around 1892, Mills applied his metallurgical expertise to create some of Britain's earliest aluminium golf clubs, patent number 13545, known as metallic golfing instrument heads. Every golfer of that era knew the Mills putter. He also invented telescopic aluminium seats and folding head shooting sticks, products that combined elegance with engineering precision. By 1905, Mills had expanded operations to Birmingham, opening the Atlas Aluminium Foundry on Grove Street to supply the booming motorcar industry. His Birmingham factory became a leading manufacturer, producing castings for automobiles and aircraft. Mills developed a special alloy designated L.5 that was so superior the government essentially took it over for wartime aircraft production. His industrial empire was thriving, his reputation sterling. Then came August 1914, and everything changed. When World War I erupted, the British Expeditionary Force marched into Belgium expecting a war of movement and maneuver, cavalry charges and rapid advances. Instead, they walked into a meat grinder. By October 1914, both sides had dug into the earth, creating a system of trenches that would stretch from the English Channel to the Swiss border. 450 miles of barbed wire, mud, and death. The nature of warfare had fundamentally changed overnight, and the British Army was catastrophically unprepared for it. Soldiers needed weapons for close-quarters combat in narrow trenches where rifles were too long and bayonets too cumbersome. They needed a way to attack enemies hiding in dugouts and fortified positions without exposing themselves to withering machine gun fire. They needed grenades. But the ones they had were killing them. And that's where William Mills, the 58-year-old golf club manufacturer and aluminium pioneer, enters the story of military history. The British Army's grenade situation in 1914 to 1915 was nothing short of catastrophic. The standard issue Grenade No. 1, designed in 1908, was a perfect example of a weapon created without understanding how soldiers would actually use it in combat. Picture the design: a cast-iron canister containing explosive material, mounted on a 16-inch cane handle with a cloth streamer attached to the end to stabilize flight. The fuse was percussion-based, meaning it detonated on impact whenever the top of the grenade struck the ground. In theory, soldiers could throw it farther than the blast radius and safely take cover. In practice, it was a death trap. The problems emerged immediately when soldiers tried to use it in trenches. The narrow confines meant that when a soldier reached back to throw, the long wooden handle frequently struck the trench wall, the parapet, or got tangled in barbed wire. The cloth streamer, meant to help with flight stability, had a nasty habit of wrapping around the thrower's wrist. And because the grenade used percussion fuses, any accidental strike could trigger an explosion instantly. There were documented cases of soldiers being killed when they attempted to throw the grenade and it hit the front lip of their own trench, detonating in their faces. Others died when the grenade bounced off an obstacle and rolled back into British lines. The weapon's nickname among troops was Grim, the Widowmaker. The situation was so desperate that soldiers began improvising their own grenades, creating the infamous jam tin bombs. These were literally empty jam tins packed with gun cotton or dynamite, scrap metal, nails, and bits of anything sharp they could find. A length of fuse projected through the top, with each inch providing approximately 1.25 seconds of delay. You had to light the fuse with a match and throw quickly, a process that left absolutely no margin for error. One British soldier wrote in his diary, "We make our own bombs from jam tins and fill them with bits of iron and nails. Every man carries matches and hopes to God the fuse doesn't go out. I've seen 3 men blown apart by their own bombs this week. It's murder by our own hand." The French weren't much better off. Early in 1915, French forces were reported to be making grenades from foie gras cans, sardine tins, and beef cans, whatever food containers they could scrounge. They'd eat the contents, then pack the containers with explosives and stone fragments collected from the trenches. These improvised weapons had fuses lasting less than 6 seconds and were notoriously unreliable. The statistics paint a grim picture. During the opening months of trench warfare, British and French forces were suffering casualties not from enemy action but from their own malfunctioning weapons. Grenade accidents were so common that some commanders considered banning their use entirely rather than watching more men die from friendly fire. Infantry tactics required grenades for clearing enemy trenches. There was simply no other way to attack fortified positions without exposing yourself to deadly fire. British bombing parties typically consisted of 9 men, an NCO leader, 2 throwers, 2 grenade carriers, 2 bayonet men for protection, and 2 reserves to replace casualties. These teams would race down captured trenches, throwing grenades into each dugout they passed. But with unreliable weapons, the bombing parties were almost suicide squads. The operational impact was devastating. During major offensives, British forces needed to carry grenades in green canvas buckets holding up to 24 at a time, because soldiers couldn't safely carry them on their person due to their close-fitting uniforms. The grenades and detonators were supposed to be kept separate and assembled before use, but in the chaos of combat, soldiers often grabbed boxes only to discover they lacked detonators entirely. There was also the German advantage to consider. The German stick grenade, with its wooden handle and more reliable fuse system, was proving superior to British designs. Germans could throw their grenades farther, with better accuracy, and with significantly less risk to themselves. During trench raids, German bombers would clear entire sections of British trenches while British soldiers fumbled with dangerous, outdated weapons. By early 1915, over 50 different grenade designs were in production across British factories, a chaotic situation that created supply nightmares and training problems. None of them worked well. Percussion grenades were too dangerous. Friction-ignited grenades could accidentally spark. Early time-fused models had delays of 7 seconds or more, giving defenders time to escape or even throw the grenades back. One British officer reported, "We lose more men to our own grenades than to German ones. Something must be done, and done quickly, or we'll have no bombers left at all." The problem was clear. British forces desperately needed a hand grenade that was safe to carry, reliable to use, easy to throw in confined spaces, and deadly to the enemy. They needed it immediately, and they needed millions of them. Enter William Mills. In early 1915, William Mills read the casualty reports and made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He shut himself in his Birmingham workshop and began a systematic study of grenade design failures. Every accident report, every soldier complaint, every flaw in every existing model. Mills approached the problem with the same methodical precision he'd applied to lifeboat mechanisms and aluminium alloys decades earlier. The difference was, this time soldiers were dying. Mills recognized that the grenade problem had 3 critical components: safety, reliability, and lethality. Previous designs had focused primarily on lethality while treating safety and reliability as afterthoughts. Mills reversed that thinking. A grenade that killed its thrower was worthless. A grenade that failed to detonate was worthless. A grenade had to work, every time, safely. He began with the basic shape. The long-handled grenades were fundamentally unsuited to trench warfare. They caught on everything. Mills envisioned a compact design that would fit comfortably in a soldier's hand, something that could be thrown with a natural motion similar to bowling in cricket. He chose cast iron for the body because it was cheap, easy to manufacture, and would fragment predictably upon detonation. Then came his stroke of genius, the serrated surface. Mills divided the grenade's exterior into a pattern of raised squares, creating what would become known as the pineapple appearance. The grooves served 2 purposes. First, they provided an excellent grip, making the grenade less likely to slip from cold, muddy, or bloodied hands. Second, and this was crucial, Mills believed the grooves would cause the cast iron to fragment along predictable lines upon detonation, creating a more consistent shrapnel pattern. Later analysis would show that fragmentation is actually somewhat random, but the grooves certainly helped with grip and gave soldiers confidence in the weapon. The real innovation was the safety mechanism. Mills designed a spring-loaded striker held in place by an external lever and secured with a safety pin. When a soldier pulled the pin while holding the lever down, nothing happened. The grenade remained inert. Only when the soldier released the lever, typically by throwing the grenade, would the striker spring forward, igniting a percussion cap connected to a timed fuse. This design meant soldiers could carry armed grenades with the pins already removed, as long as they maintained pressure on the lever. It meant a dropped grenade wouldn't explode unless the lever released. It meant soldiers had complete control over when the countdown began. For the first time, British troops would have a weapon that wouldn't kill them through simple clumsiness or bad luck. Mills set the fuse delay at 4 seconds, long enough for a soldier to throw the grenade and take cover, but short enough that enemies wouldn't have time to escape or throw it back. This represented a careful balance based on actual throwing distances and combat conditions. The weight came in at 1.25 pounds, heavy enough to throw with force but light enough to carry multiple grenades. But Mills also knew that innovation meant nothing without validation. He couldn't just build a prototype and hope it worked. Too many soldiers had already died from improvements that failed in the field. So Mills built multiple test models and began rigorous trials at his Birmingham facility, throwing them, dropping them, exposing them to mud and water, testing every failure mode he could imagine. The design gradually evolved. Mills collaborated with Major Claude Cranfield Banks, incorporating military feedback into successive iterations. He refined the fuse mechanism to make it more resistant to moisture and shock. He strengthened the lever mechanism. He tested different explosive fillings, eventually settling on amatol, a mixture of TNT and ammonium nitrate that was powerful, stable, and relatively easy to manufacture at scale. Mills also designed the grenade with mass production in mind. Unlike some experimental weapons that required specialized manufacturing, the Mills bomb could be cast and assembled using conventional metalworking equipment. The body was cast iron poured into molds. The internal components were simple enough that any competent machine shop could produce them. Mills understood that Britain would need these grenades in massive quantities, and fast. By February 20, 1915, Mills was ready. He transported test models to the Shoeburyness Proving Ground, where British military ordnance went through rigorous evaluation. This was the moment of truth. Over 50 different grenade designs were competing for adoption. Mills' grenade looked almost comically simple compared to some of the elaborate contraptions other inventors had submitted. The tests began. Soldiers threw Mills' grenades at various distances. The fragmentation patterns were measured. The reliability of the fuse mechanism was assessed through hundreds of tests. They threw grenades in rain, in mud, after being dropped, after rough handling. They compared throwing accuracy to other designs. They measured how easily soldiers could carry and use them in simulated trench conditions. The results were decisive. Mills' grenade demonstrated superior reliability, ease of use, and consistent performance. Soldiers found it intuitive to operate. Pull the pin, hold the lever, throw, and take cover. The compact shape allowed for accurate throws up to 30 yards with reasonable accuracy for a competent thrower. The lever safety system meant accidental detonations were nearly impossible. And perhaps most importantly, soldiers reported feeling confident using it, which was revolutionary given their previous experience with deadly, unreliable designs. The military brass who had initially dismissed Mills' soup can grenade were forced to eat their words. On May 5, 1915, the British Army officially adopted Mills' design as the Grenade, Hand, No. 5. The nickname Mills bomb quickly spread through the ranks, a term of respect for the weapon that actually worked. But adoption was just the beginning. Mills immediately faced a new challenge: production. The British Army needed these grenades not in hundreds or thousands, but in millions. The scale was staggering. Mills opened the Mills Munitions Factory in Birmingham, converting his peacetime aluminium casting operation into a wartime grenade production facility. He invested his own money, hired workers, installed specialized equipment, and began churning out grenades as fast as humanly possible. Mills also licensed his design to other manufacturers, recognizing that his factory alone couldn't meet demand. By mid-1916, multiple British contractors were producing Mills bombs, ramping up output to supply the massive offensive planned for the Somme. The detonators were manufactured separately for safety and shipped in different containers, with assembly occurring at forward positions before combat operations. Mills continued refining his design even as mass production began. In 1917, he introduced the No. 36M variant, sealed with shellac to prevent moisture deterioration, a modification specifically requested for use in Mesopotamia but which proved valuable in all theaters. He developed rifle-launched versions with base plugs that could accept firing rods, extending the grenade's effective range to 150 yards when fired from a Lee-Enfield rifle with a special blank cartridge. The man who had started as a shipbuilder's son, who had invented lifeboat mechanisms and golf clubs, had now created one of the most effective infantry weapons of the 20th century. And the impact was about to become apparent on battlefields across Europe. The Mills bomb's battlefield debut fundamentally altered infantry combat. By mid-1915, as production ramped up and distribution spread through British and Commonwealth forces, reports from the Western Front began documenting a dramatic shift in close-quarters fighting effectiveness. During the Battle of Loos in September 1915, British bombing parties equipped with Mills bombs successfully cleared German trenches that had been considered impregnable. Soldiers who had previously hesitated to use unreliable grenades now aggressively employed them in every phase of combat. The psychological impact was immediate. Troops finally trusted their equipment, and that confidence translated directly into battlefield effectiveness. Lieutenant Arthur Graham Butler of the Royal Fusiliers wrote in November 1915, "The new Mills grenades have changed everything. Our men carry them with confidence, knowing they won't blow up in their pockets. Yesterday we cleared 3 connected trenches using Mills bombs exclusively. What would have cost us 50 casualties with the old Jamton affairs cost us only 3 wounded. The Germans evacuated entire sections rather than face our bombing parties. The longest grenade engagement of World War I occurred at Pozieres Heights on the night of July 26 to 27, 1916, when Australian and British troops fought Germans for over 12 hours in a brutal grenade duel. The Germans employed every type of grenade in their arsenal. The Allied forces used approximately 15,000 Mills bombs in that single engagement. The sustained, reliable performance of the Mills bomb was crucial to Allied success. Soldiers could throw grenades for hours without worrying about malfunctions or accidents. By 1916, the Mills bomb had become so essential to British infantry tactics that specialized training programs were established throughout the army. At camps like Aldershot, soldiers practiced proper throwing technique, mimicking the bowling motion used in cricket. The standardized training emphasized pin removal, lever hold, and throwing arc, dramatically reducing accident rates. What had once been a dangerous, haphazard activity became a refined military skill. The production numbers tell an extraordinary story. During the course of World War I, approximately 75 million Mills bombs were manufactured, accounting for roughly 70 million when including all variants, compared to perhaps 35 million other grenade types combined by all Allied forces. This represented approximately 2/3 of all Allied hand grenades used during the war. The Mills bomb had essentially become the Allied standard. The strategic impact extended beyond individual engagements. Mills bombs enabled new infantry tactics that simply hadn't been possible with previous designs. Trench clearing operations became faster and more efficient. Raiding parties could penetrate deeper into enemy positions with less risk. The consolidation of captured trenches became more feasible because defenders had reliable tools to repel counterattacks. British and Commonwealth forces developed specialized bombing squads that operated like modern special forces teams. These units would infiltrate enemy trenches at night, using Mills bombs to systematically clear dugouts and defensive positions. The reliability of the weapon meant these high-risk operations had significantly better survival rates than similar operations using earlier grenade designs. The Mills bomb also found unexpected uses. Soldiers discovered they could adapt them for demolition work, destroying enemy obstacles and fortifications. The rifle-launched variants proved effective for attacking machine gun nests at distances beyond hand-throwing range. The versatility of Mills' basic design allowed battlefield commanders to employ grenades in ways the inventor had never anticipated. The enemy noticed too. German intelligence reports from 1916 specifically warned troops about the effectiveness of British Mills bombs and instructed soldiers on how to take cover when facing bombing parties. One captured German document stated, "The British grenade with a segmented surface is extremely effective. When you hear the distinctive sound of the safety lever releasing, immediate cover is essential. Do not attempt to throw these grenades back, the fuse delay is too short." The humanitarian impact, while perhaps counterintuitive for a weapon, was significant. By replacing deadly, unreliable grenades with a safe, effective design, Mills saved countless soldiers from being killed by their own equipment. The reduction in friendly fire casualties, while impossible to quantify precisely, was substantial. Soldiers who would have died from malfunctioning grenades instead survived to see their families again. The economic impact was also considerable. Mills received £27,750 from the British government for his invention, equivalent to several million pounds in today's currency. However, Mills later claimed he actually lost money on the grenade, having invested heavily in manufacturing facilities and production capacity that exceeded his government compensation. Mills himself stated near the end of his life that he had lost £30,000 on the invention, though whether this accounting included opportunity costs or potential licensing revenues remains unclear. The Mills munitions factory employed hundreds of workers during the war, contributing significantly to Birmingham's wartime economy. The factory produced not only grenades but also continued aluminium casting work for aircraft, applying Mills' L.5 alloy to critical aviation components. The facility became a model of efficient wartime production, demonstrating how civilian industrial capacity could be rapidly converted to military manufacture. By 1917, the Mills bomb had evolved into the No. 36 variant, featuring improved base plates for rifle launching and better sealing against environmental conditions. The No. 36M, with its shellac waterproofing, proved particularly valuable in the Mesopotamian campaign, where extreme heat and humidity had ruined earlier grenade designs. Mills continued innovating even as millions of his grenades were being used in combat. Allied forces weren't the only beneficiaries. Commonwealth nations including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, India, and South Africa all equipped their troops with Mills bombs. The weapon became a unifying element of Allied infantry equipment, standardizing training and tactics across multiple national forces. This interoperability proved valuable during combined operations where different national units fought side by side. The Mills bomb's impact extended beyond direct combat effectiveness. Its success demonstrated the importance of engineering-driven military innovation. Mills had applied civilian industrial techniques, systematic analysis, iterative testing, design for manufacturability to solve a military problem. His approach became a model for subsequent weapons development programs. By the armistice in November 1918, the Mills bomb had proven itself in every major battle of the Western Front, from Ypres to the Somme, from Passchendaele to the final offensives of 1918. British soldiers who had entered the war with jam-tin bombs and deadly percussion grenades finished it with a reliable, effective weapon that had fundamentally changed how infantry combat worked. The Mills bomb had cleared trenches, saved lives, and helped win a war. And remarkably, its story was just beginning. The grenade that military brass had mocked as a soup can would go on to serve in conflicts spanning more than half a century, a testament to William Mills' genius and the power of good engineering to change history. For Mills personally, the recognition came in 1922 when he was knighted for his services to the war effort. Sir William Mills, the golf club manufacturer from Sunderland, had become one of Britain's most important military innovators. But the quiet engineer remained modest about his achievement, always insisting that he'd simply tried to give soldiers a fighting chance. The Mills bomb's legacy extends far beyond World War I, representing one of the most enduring weapons designs in military history. While many wartime innovations became obsolete within years of the armistice, the Mills bomb continued serving frontline forces for decades, a remarkable testament to William Mills' engineering excellence. By 1918, the British Army had declared the No. 5 and No. 23 variants obsolete, but not because they were ineffective. Rather, they had been superseded by improved versions of Mills' own design. The No. 36 became the standard British fragmentation grenade, and in 1932, even this gave way to the No. 36M, the shellac waterproofed variant that Mills had developed for Mesopotamia. This final version would remain the British Army's standard hand grenade until 1972, a staggering 55-year service life. Think about that timeline. A grenade designed in 1915 for trench warfare was still being issued to British soldiers during the Cold War. The Mills bomb served through World War II, the Korean War, the Malayan Emergency, the Mau Mau Uprising, the Suez Crisis, and countless other conflicts. Few weapons in history can claim such longevity. The Mills bomb saw action across every theater of World War II. British, Commonwealth, and resistance forces used it throughout Europe, North Africa, and Asia. During the Battle of Britain, Home Guard units stockpiled thousands of Mills bombs as part of Britain's desperate defenses against potential German invasion. Paratroopers dropped into Normandy on D-Day carried Mills bombs. The weapon that had been designed to clear German trenches in 1915 was clearing German bunkers in 1944. The international adoption was equally impressive. India manufactured Mills bombs until the early 2000s, and Pakistan continued production into the 1980s. The design was copied by dozens of nations, with variants appearing in arsenals from South America to Southeast Asia. The distinctive pineapple design became synonymous with the word grenade in popular culture. Mills bombs were still being used in combat as recently as 2004, an incredible 89 years after their initial adoption. During the Iraq War, U.S. Marine Corporal Jason Dunham was killed by a grenade that was later identified as a Mills bomb, one of countless examples of the weapon's continued presence on modern battlefields. The grenade William Mills designed to save British lives in World War I was still taking lives nearly a century later. The design influenced virtually every subsequent fragmentation grenade. The American Mk2 pineapple grenade, adopted in 1918 and used through the Vietnam War, was directly inspired by Mills' design. The Soviet F-1 grenade, nicknamed Limonka, Little Lemon, borrowed heavily from Mills' concepts. The basic principles Mills established, compact size, safety lever mechanism, timed fuse, serrated surface, became the standard template for hand grenade design worldwide. But beyond the weapon itself, Mill's story offers profound lessons about innovation, persistence, and the intersection of civilian expertise and military necessity. First, expertise transfers across domains. Mills wasn't a military man. He was an engineer who made golf clubs and aluminium castings. But the same analytical thinking, attention to detail, and commitment to safety that made him successful in civilian industry proved invaluable for solving military problems. His lifeboat mechanism had saved sailors. His grenade saved soldiers. Both came from the same engineering philosophy. Systems must work reliably under the worst possible conditions, because lives depend on it. Second, user-centered design matters. Mills didn't design a grenade that looked impressive to generals or won awards for technical complexity. He designed a grenade that exhausted, terrified soldiers could use effectively in muddy trenches while being shot at. He understood that the best weapon is useless if soldiers won't or can't use it safely. This focus on the end user's actual experience, rather than theoretical performance, is a principle that applies to everything from weapons to software to consumer products. Third, systematic problem-solving beats brilliant intuition. Mills didn't have a sudden flash of genius that gave him the complete design. He methodically analyzed every existing grenade failure, identified the root causes, and addressed them one by one. The pin and lever safety system. The compact size. The timed fuse. The weight balance. Each element solved a specific, documented problem. This methodical approach is often more effective than trying to innovate through pure creativity. Fourth, persistence and conviction matter. When military officials initially dismissed his design, Mills didn't give up. He conducted more tests, gathered more data, and insisted on formal evaluations at Shuburines. He risked his own money to develop the design and establish production facilities before he had guaranteed contracts. He believed in his solution and fought to prove it. Innovation often requires this kind of stubborn determination in the face of skepticism. Fifth, design for scale from the beginning. Mills didn't just create a working prototype. He created a design that could be manufactured by the millions using existing industrial infrastructure. This design for manufacturability was crucial to the Mills bomb's success. Brilliant inventions that can't be produced at scale remain curiosities rather than becoming solutions. Sixth, good engineering saves lives. This lesson is the most important of all. Mills' grenade saved lives in two ways. It killed enemies more effectively, yes, but more significantly, it stopped killing the soldiers who used it. By making grenades safe and reliable, Mills prevented thousands of friendly fire casualties. Sometimes the most important innovation isn't making something more powerful, it's making something safer. The man himself remained remarkably modest. William Mills died on January 7, 1932, at age 75, in Weston-super-Mare. His wife Eliza had preceded him in death 2 years earlier. They had no children. He left an estate valued at £37,839, a relatively modest sum for someone whose invention had been used by millions. Mills had been an active member of the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce, chairman of the James Watt Memorial Trust, and a collector of pictures, china, and antiques. In his spare time, he remained a dedicated golfer and member of Moseley Golf Club. In interviews near the end of his life, Mills expressed no regrets about the military application of his invention. He had seen what poorly designed grenades did to soldiers and had given them something better. He also expressed frustration about the financial aspects, claiming he'd lost money on the project after taxes and investments. Whether this was true or simply an engineer's tendency to focus on costs rather than recognition is unclear. Today, a blue heritage plaque marks Mills' birthplace on the Times Inn public house in Ware Street, Low Southwick, Sunderland. The plaque commemorates Sir William Mills' achievements, a small recognition for a man whose invention changed warfare forever. Few people who pass the plaque understand the full significance of what Mills accomplished. The Mills bomb represents a unique intersection of civilian ingenuity, wartime necessity, and engineering excellence. It shows us that transformative innovation can come from unexpected sources, that safety and effectiveness are not mutually exclusive, and that good design can literally save lives for generations. As we face modern challenges, whether in technology, medicine, infrastructure, or other fields, Mills' story offers a template. Understand the problem deeply. Learn from failures. Design for real-world conditions. Focus on the user experience. Build for scale. Test rigorously. Persist against skepticism. And never forget that behind every system, every design, every innovation are real people whose lives may depend on getting it right. William Mills gave soldiers something precious, a weapon they could trust. In the chaos and terror of trench warfare, where every day brought new horrors, that trust was worth more than gold. Soldiers knew that when they pulled the pin on a Mills bomb, it would work exactly as designed. They knew it wouldn't kill them through some mechanical failure or design flaw. They knew they had a fighting chance. That's the real legacy of the Mills bomb, not the millions produced, not the decades of service, not even the battles won. The legacy is that a civilian engineer cared enough about soldiers' lives to do the hard work of making something that actually worked. He saw a problem that was killing men and refused to accept it. He studied, designed, tested, refined, and persisted until he had a solution. So before you go, think about this. What problem in your world needs a William Mills? What's the equivalent of soldiers dying from faulty grenades in your industry, your community, your life? What needs someone to care enough to fix it properly, even if everyone initially dismisses the solution? The next time someone mocks your soup can grenade idea, remember William Mills. Remember that the military brass laughed at his design right up until it cleared 3 trenches without a single friendly casualty. Now, if this story inspired you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me, what innovation from history deserves more recognition? What unsung hero changed the world without getting the credit? And if you want to go deeper into military history, engineering innovations, or stories of ordinary people who did extraordinary things, check out the videos I've linked on screen. Trust me, you won't regret it. Until next time, remember, the most powerful weapon isn't always the biggest or the loudest. Sometimes it's just the one that actually works when you need it.